Hello, my name is Travis Russell, and I'm a member of Loyola House Jesuit Community on USF campus. I'm also the associate pastor at St. Ignatius Parish, located here at USF. We began our four-part series on entering into Holy Week on the Holy Triduum of Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and ending with Easter. To enter into this more fully, we have chosen a passage from Matthew 4, which is Jesus' temptation in the desert. If you remember from the story, Satan brings Jesus up to a cliff and then tempts him with three temptations. The first about turning stone into bread. The second about throwing himself off the cliff and taunting him to raise himself again. And the third of bowing down to worship Satan. Now we might just think, oh, this is Jesus, and of course he would say no. But this particular gospel comes at an important point at the Gospel of Matthew, which is before Jesus starts his ministry. It's meant to emphasize Jesus' humanity. So, all of these temptations are temptations that we struggle with. Therefore, it's a good way of entering into the journey of the cross and eventually the empty tomb on Easter by reflecting on the temptations, especially as they concern ourselves in these very difficult times. The first temptation that I would like to reflect on you with is the temptation for Jesus to make stones into bread. What is this temptation really about? Is it really about turning an object into food? I think it's the struggle that we all struggle with, which is one of control and one of trying to do things ourselves. It's interesting that this reflection is about Jesus showing his power or demonstrating control over the object of the stone and transforming it. Oftentimes there's a great temptation, especially in difficult times like we're in now, to want to control everything, to smooth them out, to make them as if somehow we could fix the end. But often that's not how things are in our lives. Oftentimes, illusion is control. And control is more about fear, fearing the unknown. I've thought a lot about this given our current crisis with the pandemic. People are so fearful and scared, and rightfully so. So we do our best to care for ourselves and to care for others, to protect our loved ones and to protect ourselves, and to watch out for them. We take all the necessary precautions. But even with that, we cannot eliminate the risk. There is no 100% way that we can control it. There's no way, no matter how many stones we are handed, we can turn them into bread. We all live in a world of risk. It's part of being human. And there's no way to kind of divinely interject ourselves or for God to be a puppet master and to control things. I think Jesus' message here is one of acceptance, one of acceptance of his own human limitations, even though Jesus could have done all these things. But Jesus doesn't give in to the temptation. He doesn't settle for optimism. Rather, he chooses hope. Optimism is about control. How can we make things turn out? But Jesus is about hope. About putting our faith in something bigger than ourselves. And in that hope, we're able to help get over our fear. Not eliminate it, but there is something bigger. There's something that we can understand what we're going through with. It's about meaning. It's about believing in rather than believing that. Believing that we want something to happen, or hoping that we want something to happen. Then we limit and define how God must work for it to be God. But if we hope in something or believe in something, then that's a relationship. That's one that accompanies us, walks with us. One that brings about great meaning, even in the midst of terrible suffering. It's something that we can draw upon comfort. It's also interesting about the stones. Stones are the things that people condemn others with. If you remember the story later in the gospel of the woman who was caught in adultery, they were going to use stones to stone her to death, as prescribed by the law. But again, Jesus tells us to lay down our stones. Don't act like if we're the ones to mediate justice. Rather, he emphasizes mercy, forgiveness, acceptance. And so perhaps this Lent, as we journey with Jesus, we can accompany him. We can let go of some of the control. We can rather hope in Jesus rather than hope that Jesus does something. And by giving up control about walking with Jesus, hopefully our hearts are transformed from stone into something a little more tender when we arrive at the empty tomb on Easter.